All right. Looks like we are live via YouTube and StreamYard. So, welcome everybody who's going to be in the live chat tonight. And for those who might catch this after we're live, I hope that everybody will be challenged and encouraged by the discussion tonight and the sharing. And I want to make sure to introduce my friend Carlos Peguero. Some of you will recognize him, probably subscribe to at least one of his channels. So he has several channels. Some he's used regularly, and some it's been a little while.
Yeah.
But Carlos, welcome to my channel, Fired for Truth. Haven't done a lot of live testimonies in a while, so you're the first in a long time. So welcome.
I appreciate that. It's good to be back. It's been a long time, and I couldn't be happy to do this discussion with anybody else. Someone who was like almost firsthand with my experience. So I'm glad that we're getting a chance to finally do this.
Yeah, and I was somewhat vague in my Facebook post about the discussion. I mentioned it's going to be about relationships, but I wanted this tonight, and as I was discussing with Carlos, we wanted to make sure that people understood that this is not a scripted testimony tonight. We didn't really plan for this. We didn't take any notes like we had first kind of talked about. This is going to be just a raw testimony and sharing. Like we had first kind of talked about. Let me mute that real quick. Okay, just making sure I got my YouTube chat up. But we wanted to make this something that just was kind of from the heart. And this is a subject that maybe many of you can relate to. I know that just in my short time of 3 years or so in the truth community, I've had several brothers reach out to me as they've been having major challenges in their relationships, particularly in their marriages. And, I had been talking with Carlos off and on the last few years. And Carlos reached out to me recently and said, I'm ready to share some of my testimony about what I went through, and also, some items that he thinks might be helpful to people if they're going through something similar. So I'm not going to do a lot of intro with that because I really want to give Carlos time to share. And I just told Carlos, hey, start wherever you feel comfortable. And I'm just going to let him share some testimony. That we'll have some discussion about the subject. And after a while, we'll see what time we're at and decide where we go from there. So Welcome to everybody who's in the chat. If you're not already subscribed, please do so and hit the bell button. I hope to do some more lives in the future. I haven't been as active on my channel a while due to life circumstances and a day job that's been keeping me hopping, and family and whatnot. But again, Carlos, welcome. I love the background there. Maybe you want to tell us real quick before you get into the testimony, what's the significance there of that awesome item in the background?
Well, I'm a barber, professional barber. Been doing it since the age of 11. And I'm a tech guy, tech nerd, truther, everything. So I have like this little unique little studio that I got in my apartment right now. That
Nice.
Cool. Just a nice little backdrop to some of my videos.
It's eye-catching. I like it. My background is completely fake, so no, I don't live in a mansion. I wish I had a nice fireplace with a mantle like that, stone hearth and all of that. But anyway, so yeah, Carlos, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm just going to let you kind of start where you would like to start and frame the discussion however you like, brother.
So to get right into it, the reason why I hit up Nate is because this is something that I think a lot of men and women that are in the truth community that seek knowledge from, above and the Most High, and are constantly seeking truth. I guess there's no better way to say it, but the whole truth aspect of it. No matter where you are, if you're on the biblical side or just, hardcore truth person who doesn't yet understand that there's like a whole nother aspect to it that, from above that kind of lays everything out for us. If you're not there yet, understand that I hope one day you do get there, and hopefully a video like this might help you get there. But for me, it started that the moment I started really seeking truth, seeking a deeper understanding with the Most High, Um, I'll go back a little bit more. Like I got married to a woman who also was a believer,
Mm,
um, but wasn't on fire for the Lord, and I was okay with that because I still noticed that she definitely wanted a relationship, and we used to go to church. It was, it was rocky. I definitely missed a lot of red flags in that relationship, and we had two beautiful kids, um, both born on the same day,
oh wow,
7 years apart. It's crazy. I know God made it easy on me.
crazy day for birthdays, huh?
Yeah, yeah, He made it easy on me. But yeah, it's amazing and a blessing. But with that being said, um, I really always had a desire to draw closer to God and to
Mm,
really seek understanding from His Word. So, being that this is my profession, I used to have headphones and whatnot, and I used to have one plugged in and listen to a lot of sermons, do a lot of studying that way, a lot of
mm,
podcasts before people even knew what podcasts were. I was always in those realms, and I did a lot of soul searching, and I would sometimes come across conspiratorial type subjects,
mm,
and one of them was this documentary from a pastor. I can't even tell you his name, but it was around 2009 when I really started getting serious. Um, and it was called The Truth About Hip Hop.
mm,
And in that documentary, he exposed a lot of the Freemason stuff and the, secret society aspects. Now, for
mm,
me, I always knew that there was something going on with the whole 9/11. So I already had that mentality. Plus, I used to decode movies for whatever reason before I even knew what that meant. It was like, oh, why is there this kind of symbolism? I used to like just find the predictive stuff just naturally.
nice.
Definitely it was a gift, but obviously at the time you don't understand how to use it. You're like, this is
Mm,
so useless. I don't understand why I know this stuff. But
yeah.
but yeah, so in that documentary, it really got me understanding a lot about the secret societies and Freemason and
Mm,
the whole Illuminati aspect of it. And so it drew me closer because I realized like, man, the music industry is really crazy. And then the
mm,
whole Hollywood anything in that's being, pushed in front of us, I realized like it's really dark and rooted in some witchcraft and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely.
um that there is where my like whole truth mentality started really evolving. And
Yeah, Andy in the chat says that it might have been Pastor Craig Lewis from X Ministries. He said he watched the
I
same.
yeah, so I
He said
think
he watched the same segment.
X
And
Ministry does sound very familiar.
yeah,
And
he said
again,
that that was his
2009, that was so
first eye
long ago.
opener. Yeah, as
Yeah.
well. So he said it
So
was around 2010 for him. So that's cool.
yeah, so with that, I I always had this pull, towards the word and
Mm,
towards understanding deeper meaning. And at one point, I remember that I wanted to learn more about like the whole Nephilim aspect of it because I remember hearing other people talk about. And I was like,
mhm.
I know that word. Why does that sound familiar? So I started digging deep. Well, you know what happens when you start digging deep? You're gonna run into in the early days, you run into some Rob Skiba stuff, and then
Yeah,
I started
Nephilim.
watching. Yeah, I started watching a lot of his material, and
Mm,
I got a I drew what I would consider a relationship where I could trust what he said. Not that I took what he said as gospel, but I knew that he was always talking with some sort of conviction, and he would research the scriptures. It
mm,
wasn't that he was just talking just to talk about a subject. He actually did a lot of research behind it. So I grew that fun of like, well, I can trust some of what he says. I'm always gonna check it myself, but at least I have a foundation with this guy. And
mhm.
then he started talking about FE, flat earth, biblical cosmology, and I was like, oh, he just lost me. Yeah, this guy's he went toast on me.
Yeah.
But I asked myself, I remember praying just like a week or two prior to that and saying, like, why are you closed off to this. Like, you were just praying that you wanted God to reveal to you real truth, like more truth. If there's un hidden truth that I don't know about, let me
Mhm.
know, you know. And this was
Be
early on.
careful
This
what
is
you pray for.
Yeah,
I know all
exactly,
about that.
exactly. Which,
Yeah.
now, I'm so happy he did, because it is what it is. But
Mhm.
yeah, he started talking about it, and I told myself, like, no, just listen. And
Mm.
it doesn't take long when you actually know enough truth to know when someone's deceiving you.
Mm.
And I started realizing, like, he's making too much sense. So I started doing more research, finding as much material as I could. Um, and because I was into the Nephilim stuff and biblical cosmology, I also was looking into, the whole Christmas aspect and, these holidays, these pagan holidays, which I
Mhm.
always had a problem even before I even considered them pagan, is that, like, why are we giving this, Santa Claus all the glory if it's supposed to be Jesus' birthday anyways? I used to
Yeah.
always be like I used to have conflict with
Mm.
my wife at the time, and even with that, so it only ramped up when I started really putting my foot down and saying, look, I'm not trying to celebrate Christmas no more, like,
Mhm.
I'm not trying to do this no more. I'm trying to, I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I know my walk ain't perfect, but at
Mhm.
least I'm trying to take steps in certain directions that, like, are leading me away from some of this stuff. And she just didn't want to follow. She didn't want to walk in the same line.
Yeah.
And it,
So would you say that was like one of the first conflicts that arose in your marriage
not one
as
of the
far as like
first, but
pressure?
definitely didn't help.
Okay.
It definitely started bringing a really big strife between us.
Mm.
Um, because what happens is, and this is, I want to say woman's nature, is once a woman starts losing respect for you, it's really hard to then um, win that back, because
Mhm.
they kind of start looking down on you, like, you lost your mind. What are you talking about? And I prayed.
Mhm.
I used to have people who to pray for me, like I just want my marriage to work. I want my marriage to last. I want my marriage to be successful. I don't
Mhm.
want this, like, dividedness. Around these times, they always got worse and worse for us. Then we would have these, like, times when there's no holidays, and it was like,
Mm.
it was nice, but for the most part, it was very up and down for many years. We were together for close to 20 years.
Mm.
And uh, like, getting to it, like, the more I drew closer to God, the more my marriage suffered.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people are going to relate to that. What happened with me was I was constantly in an argument with her,
Mhm.
constantly. It was like an uphill battle. It was everything. It seemed like I did was just, like, wrong in her eyes. Um, and I'm not here to bash her, because,
Sure.
like, I know that somebody can take this and be like, oh, it seems like she was terrible. Well, she wasn't obviously completely terrible, but I was just in a different road than her. Like,
Mm.
in a relationship, you have two people, and sometimes one person stays in one lane and never grows out of that lane.
Mm.
And what happens is the other person starts changing and maturing. And it's like, no, I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. Like, I shouldn't be. I should be more mature. I should have more
Mhm.
knowledge. You didn't marry the same. I'm not the same guy you married. Of course not. And she would always say that, like, this is not what I signed up for. You're
Mhm.
completely different. And I understood that. I was sympathetic to that, but it was like, you're acting like I'm going out and partying and doing all the stuff that, like,
Sure.
is no, like, I'm just seeking a better relationship with God. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything wrong. Like.
So it was kind of like you were kind of diverging a bit with the different truths and that you were coming to, and I imagine, you were trying to share some with her and try to bring
Yeah,
her along. So it wasn't like you downshifted, changed lanes and punched the gas, took the first exit. You guys were on the same road for a while, but you were changing a few lanes, and then, she just wasn't coming along with that. She wasn't on the same page, and so it created more tension.
exactly. And the tension kept growing and growing. And the tension would get worse when I was trying to implement that with my kid, my
Mm.
son at the time. My daughter wasn't born yet, my son. So obviously, the whole biblical cosmology. I was teaching them. I mean, I was making videos on this stuff at the point. I
Yeah.
started making videos. I started networking with other believers and
Mm,
other flat earthers, and really just like really using my gifts, for the kingdom, trying to help promote truth out there. And so yeah, I was doing that, and
mm,
obviously it felt like I would feel bad at times, like she would make me feel like, oh, you all you're doing is taking time from your family to do these things, and it was like, no, you guys are asleep when I'm making these videos. A lot of times, like I started learning how to but it wasn't never enough, and I realized
mm,
at the end of the day, it was always just something just to nitpick at me.
yeah.
So if you're in the same shoes where it seems like the person's complaining and you're doing everything you can to maneuver around them, like, okay, well, I'm not going to produce a video or work on a video until you're asleep. And it's like, why can't you go to bed? Like, I'm not a child. I don't need to go to bed because you want me to go to bed. Like, I got other hobbies and things I want to do. You're going to bed. Okay, I'm going to take that time and use my creative talents to do something with it. And that's what I would do. And I would get like a lot of backlash for it.
Mm,
So it got to a point where one day she told me like I don't even want to be like I want a divorce. I don't want to be with you. And I was like, wait,
mm.
what? Like, what are you talking about?
That seemed kind of like extreme compared to, like,
Yeah.
in other words, you weren't expecting to hear that, right?
So this is the thing, and this is one of the things I mean about red flags that I miss, which
Mm,
is when we would get into an argument, it was always a divorce argument. Like it always somehow turned into I want a divorce, and I never
yeah.
I should have known like something was up. Like at that point, it
Yeah.
was always I wanted to, like we couldn't just have a disagreement. It was always something that oh, let's just
That
end
was
this. And it
kind
was
of
like,
like the ace card, if you want to try to win a discussion, you say, well, I just want a divorce, right?
yeah, and it's like that's not how it works. Like we were married, we got kids. You
Mhm.
just trying to throw all this out like because you are not happy. Later on, I figured out like she just wasn't happy with herself,
Mm,
and I don't think she's still happy with herself. Um, and I'll go into further detail why I believe
sure.
that. But um so one like a few years ago she says that to me, and I was just like thrown away, like, no, what are you talking about? Like you can't just give up, and you can't, like, we'll figure this out, and whatever time would pass, I would pray a lot, have people pray for me,
Mhm,
and then we would somehow like rekindle everything, and it would last for a couple months, and then it would be
mhm,
like the same thing a couple months later. It was back, like, oh, I don't want to be with you. And it was like, what's going on here? And it was like the more I drew closer, the more I tried to do right, the more I was being like attacked.
mm.
Um, to the point where, that happened several times. And
And so, Carlos, how long ago was this point that you're describing now, where you were kind of on again, off again, and then she would keep coming back to I want a divorce, I'm not happy. But how long ago was that when you
at
reached that point?
at this point, it's probably 3.5, maybe 4 years. Maybe it might be in
Hmm.
the more closer to 3 years
Okay.
from this point. And so then we end up going through that a couple times, um and then when one of the last times we went through it, like got out of it, it seemed like our marriage was getting better.
Mm,
um we went and sold our house, bought a new house, a bigger house. Our family was growing. By this time I had my daughter.
hmm.
Well, I also had a stepson, but he wasn't living with us at the time. And he was much older, so he was already out of the house.
Mm,
um and like, yeah, so I was just, got this new house. It's like, okay, I left the job that I had for 10 years to work closer to the home, because I was working
mhm,
35 minutes away. So it was going to be a little bit, it was going to be a rough start, because I
mm,
was leaving 10 years worth of clientele to start fresh, just so I can be closer. And things didn't work out at that point. Like my
mm,
time ran up there. Like me and the owner, like as much as we liked each other, it just like we just had different views on what we wanted from each other. And it just got
sure.
to a point where it was like, all right, I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off, and I'm just gonna do what I gotta do. I felt like
Mm,
now when I did it, I didn't have like regret. I felt like, all right, And the same day, I already had a job. Like I called a friend,
Mm.
hey, you guys got room over there? Yeah, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. And everything was pretty good. We went on vacation, came back, this
Mhm.
and that, and she started telling me like out of the nowhere, I would go to give her a kiss. I
Mhm.
remember one day I finally worked so close to my house I can leave for lunch and go to my house
Sure.
and go have lunch and stuff. And
Yeah,
I was
me
doing
too.
that especially because I was really tight on my budget at that point.
Mm.
Having a new house, a little bit bigger payment, and not just having that consistent money. I was like trying to save money as much as I could. So I would drive home, make my little lunch or something like that, and then I would spend a little time with them and go. And I remember one day I go home and I go and she's sitting down with the kids. I think it was like a Saturday or something, or
Mm.
it might have been summertime. Not remembering exactly the time. No, I think it was like on a weekend. And I go and try to go give her a kiss, and she turns her cheek to me, and I was like, "Wait, what?"
Mm.
And I was like, "That's odd." Okay, whatever. And then it happened again. That happened
Mm.
in the morning, and then it happened again when I went to go get some lunch. And I said, "Yo, what's going on? Like, why are you giving me your cheek?" And she turned to me and said, "Well, I told you how I felt." I'm like, "You told me that several times, but we've been working at this. Like, where is
Mm.
this coming from?" And
So that was some new reaction that you'd never experienced
yeah,
before with her, and
yeah.
so obviously you're like, "Whoa, what just
Yeah,
happened?"
like first of all, what I do, like I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
We didn't get into a fight. So where is this like all of a sudden you're just flipping
Mm.
a switch that you don't want to give me affection, which was already tough enough for me to get affection
Mm.
from her.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of this. Like, you're gonna have to figure this out because I don't deserve to be treated this way
Yep.
where I'm like constantly walking on eggshells with you. And like, I'm just trying to give my wife affection. Like, what is the big deal? Well, I told you how I feel, this and that, and I don't want to be with you. And I'm just like, what is going on here? And then we just got into a big fight. And then by the time I got home, she started sleeping in my daughter's room.
Mm.
And it was like, okay, like, wow, like seriously?
So there were some big changes that took place, kind of some chain reactions there, and
Yeah.
you could tell that okay, this is way different.
Yeah. Not too different because she would do stuff, but we would still sleep in the same bed. But
Mhm.
now she just like took it upon her. I'm looking, she's not wearing a wedding ring. She's sleeping in my daughter's
Mm.
room. We're just roommates, and it's just like this tension that's in the house.
Mm.
And I'm really praying hard. And what happened next was me asking the hard question.
Mm.
And that was in my prayer. And I said, God, I don't know what it is, what I'm doing wrong, but just reveal to me what's going on. Like, I need to know. Like, I just need to know. And I
Yeah.
just know something's not right. And this went on for like a good week. Well, he sometimes answers you fast when you
I
ask. And
remember when you called me and you told me about this prayer and what the result was. It's pretty powerful.
yeah, so one night, the routine was she was sleeping in my daughter's room. She would go when she wasn't in there. She would get home. She would get her bottle of wine. She would go and listen to music outside, and that was kind of like what she was doing. How she
Mm.
would unwind, and I would just kind of like stay away from her. And one night, my daughter, in the like almost like 10 o'clock at night, I can hear my daughter kind of crying out for
Mm.
her mom. So I'm like, okay, I wake up and I'm like half asleep, and I wake up and I just kind of like, what's going on? She's like, oh, I want mommy. Okay, so I just take her, I grab her by her hand and walk her because at the time she started sleeping in my son's room with my son. So I take her to walk her to her room where her mother's supposed to be,
Mm.
and I just kind of pushed her in there and just walked back into my room, put my covers over my head, and I just try to go back to sleep. Well, like for like 10 minutes later, I hear my daughter still crying in the hallway.
Mm.
And I'm like, what's going on? So I just picked her up. Put her in bed with me. She's crying a little bit and she finally goes to sleep. So now I'm asleep. But then something inside of me, it was like,
Where's mom?
um, where is your mom?
Yeah.
And the last thing I remember, she was downstairs drinking wine, listening to her music. So I was like, whatever. So I just went back, like, go back to sleep.
Mm.
but I couldn't sleep. Something inside of me was like, no, go find out where she's at.
Mm,
So by this time, it's late. It's closer to, I don't know, closer to almost 12 o'clock.
mm,
And I go to the room. I look, she's not in there. I'm like, what's going on? I go in my office. I kind of look outside. I see her car. Okay, no problem. Just kind of glanced over. Then I go downstairs and I see the light, the back porch light on. And
mm,
okay, but I don't see her, and it's dead silent because it's around 12 o'clock at night. There's no sound being heard. So I look to see maybe she fell asleep on the couch. No, she's
mhm,
not there. Well, we had two rooms that had couches, so go downstairs fully, walk, and I'm looking in the kitchen. I'm looking in the other room. No, she's not there. But as I got closer to that room, which is closer to the front door,
mm,
I started hearing her voice, and I was like, "What's going on here?" So I hear her voice, and I started hearing she's having a conversation, and I'm like, the conversation she's having does not belong in
mm.
our marriage. Like, she's talking to somebody else. So
Yep.
as I get closer to the door, I'm hearing more and more of this. Gets to the point where I open the door and I slam it open, and I look and I can hear her. She doesn't see me though.
Mm,
She's having a conversation with another guy. And
mm,
I'm like, what is going on? She happens to be behind her car. She doesn't see me. So when she turns the corner, she sees me. And
mm,
I'm like, I knew it. I knew something had to be up.
mm,
I went and grabbed her phone. I seen there was a person's name there, and it just stuck in my head. And she's trying to deny. And finally, she just kind of admitted, like, yeah, but it's nothing. The
mm,
whole was just my friend. Yeah, whatever. But then at the same time was kind of like saying, like, what do you expect? And I was like, what do I expect? I expect you to be you're a married woman, you
mm.
know?
So
So
the Father basically answered your prayer, even though that was a
yeah,
difficult way to find out.
truth
You did
is,
ask him to show me what's the real
yeah,
issue here,
truth
right?
will hurt you if
Yeah,
you know, and that's what people don't understand. Like, truth does hurt, but I would rather know the truth than to keep living
yeah,
in a lie. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So he
that
helped
was
reveal
revealed to
that
me.
deception
Yeah.
and
He helped
what was
reveal it.
really under the surface there.
Yeah. And it was such a shock.
Mm,
I didn't really have much emotion. We were arguing.
mhm,
I'll be honest, I was calling her every name in the book. I was so
mm.
mad. And
I'm sure you
um
had an adrenaline rush at
oh
that point.
man, and I was just filled with it. And the only thing I remember is, like, I want to call my stepson, her son,
Mm,
he's a Marine. He's in, he's deployed and stuff like that, or in training. I don't remember, but I
mm,
remember I got in my car, and and I um I just leave. So I
mhm,
leave, get in my car and leave, and I call him. I'm like, man, your mom's cheating on me. Like, this is crazy. I can't believe this. I never expected from her, who
mm,
hates this kind of thing, and somehow now she's the one doing it to me. And she was always accusing me of cheating. Like, one day she got, like, I mean, she wanted to divorce me then, really, because I made a banner for another girl,
mm.
a
For a
YouTube
YouTube
banner. And I
channel,
was
yeah,
like, you
yeah,
never said anything when I made YouTube banners for all these dudes. I just
yeah,
seen a girl who was doing good work. I made a banner for her. What's the difference? I wasn't trying to holler at her.
mhm,
I was like really just being nice. And here I wasn't doing anything sexual. I
sure,
wasn't had no intentions of that. It was just simply I was trying to provide a service to somebody I seen that had something good to say
mm,
in the whole truther community. And she's just like, oh, this and that. Um, so I was constantly being accused, and it was like,
mm,
now I look back, I'm like, wow, the reason why she's accusing me because she was the one doing this stuff.
mm. Yeah, she was
Um,
projecting some of that. Yeah,
yeah,
and I know that during this time you had called me, several times to talk, and I remember, how frustrated you were, just the emotion that you had, and there were times where you were like, "Nate, I don't know if I can make it through the day," right? I
yeah,
mean, I
yeah,
remember we talked and we prayed, and it was just kind of like, just make it through this day, one day at a time, and I know that some other stuff happened along with this, and really
yeah,
you realize that this is a pattern of behavior. It's not an innocent thing.
yeah. It got really bad. It got really bad because once she figured out, like, that I knew, it was like she didn't care. Like
Mm.
she was throwing it in my face. She was doing all this stuff, and we're not going to go too much detail because that's not what the
Sure.
point. This is the point. Um, but I was very blessed because, like, I want to say a couple of weeks prior to that,
Mm.
I started to work out. I had it in me. I wanted to work out. I felt God. And it's funny because one of the guys at the barbershop, he started working out and I was watching him from a distance. Like, okay, this guy's actually doing the work. It's been like 2 weeks. He's been going at it hard by
Mhm.
himself. He's walking on ginger and stuff like that. So one day he came in, he's looking sore. And I was like, hey, you working out, huh? He's like, yeah, I told you I'm being sick. I was like, well, I felt like the spirit inside of me say, well, listen,
Mm.
tell him you'll go with him. And
Mm.
when you say
Yeah.
it, you're gonna say it and everyone's gonna hear it. So you're gonna be held accountable.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, no. So I was like, so you need a workout partner? He's like, I could always use one. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, well, I'll go with you. What time you go? And he was like 5:30. And I was like, nope. And the spirit, the Holy Spirit was like, bro, just commit to it. Like, because I'm not a
You
morning
gotta do
person.
this. Yeah.
And he was like, just commit to it. And I was like, all right. And I told him, I said, man, you miss one day and I'm done. I will wake up, but the moment you don't show up, I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
we started going hard. And the thing was, I was at my heaviest, man. My background was basketball player. So I was always in great shape. And
Mm.
then when I got married, I just started working a lot and just
Yeah.
left all that.
The sedentary
Yeah.
lifestyle
Yeah.
kicked in on you.
I got to like 275 and I was, for my height, that was too much.
Mm.
That was way too much. And I started losing a little weight. I lost like 15 pounds and I was happy. I was building some more discipline in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when all this went down, I remember the night that I found out I was going to go to the gym, but I couldn't sleep. So the only thing I could do, the first person I could even talk to this about really, besides telling my stepson, was my workout partner. So 5:30 hits, I was looking at the clock because I was just waiting for it to hit. Get dressed, go. And I meet with him and he's like, all right, let's go. And I was like, bro, I can't do it. He's like, what? I was like, man, I just found out my wife's cheating on me. And he was like, oh my Lord. So we just had a good talk the whole, like, instead of working out, we went to a Starbucks and we just sat down. He just listened. And that was the first time, like, I couldn't just get this off my chest.
Yeah.
And he just listened and he was giving me advice. I can't tell you what he told me. I just know it comforted me in some way. And
so he was a key person that helped you in that dark moment. And I mean, it seems to me that it was the Father's providence because you moved to this new job, you end up getting to know this guy as a coworker, then you get that nudge, right? The Spirit's giving you that nudge to get active and ask this guy if he wants a partner. You guys are working out for a while, and so you built that relationship, and then you had that opportunity because you were closer to him than you've been before.
Definitely.
So he was in a good position, and like you said, he was the first person that popped into your mind. The timing was right. You were going to be supposed to be working out with him anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it was just that. And why I say that is because God's timing is amazing. Like, I started losing weight and I built that discipline. I remember just telling myself, like, look, man, you can beat yourself up, you can be depressed, but you already started something. Like, just keep going. Like, even if it's tough at some days, like, you need something to take your mind off it. And I just stuck with it, man.
Healthy. You could pick up a lot of other hobbies and habits that weren't healthy. Physically, emotionally, and spiritually, all that.
And I just stuck with it, and the changes started coming up like fast. Like, within a couple months, I was down like 40, 45, 50 pounds. And I at the time, I wasn't, we were on lockdown too. So part of the whole stress with me is I have nowhere to go. I'm literally living a nightmare with this person who's doing this to me, and they're escaping on the weekends and coming back, at the end of the weekend. And I'm like, I know exactly what's going on. And I have 2 kids. I'm becoming like full-time dad while she's out there doing what she's doing, I'm over here trying to make sure my kids are fed, bathed, and making sure they're entertained while my mind's still going 1,000 miles an hour. And I'm calling Nay at times. Like, I don't know what to do. It was just
Mhm.
really tough. And I was, again, I was focused on certain things that he kept me focused on
Mhm.
certain things. Even when I was going through it as bad as it was, he had me focused on just like keep this
Mhm.
going. And man, was it a blessing, man. It was such a blessing.
Sure, and
Um,
we do know that physiologically too, just the working out, those natural endorphins, they elevate your mood. It's a
yeah.
stress reliever, and how important would you say it was for you to have at least a couple people that you could reach out to? Because I know you were talking with your workout buddy. We had talked several times and prayed together at the end of our conversations, and tell us a little bit about how important that was, and because I think some people, and you may have felt like this at some point, but you kind of broke through that if you did.
Mhm.
Some people when they're going through, or many people when they're going through something like this, they pretty much just bring it inside, right?
Yeah.
Especially men, right? Because what do men do? We hide our feelings. We don't like
Yeah.
to talk about our feelings. We don't like to open up. And but you took that step of faith to reach out to a few people. And would you say
Definitely.
that if you hadn't have done that,
Oh,
things would have probably been worse?
yeah, I think keeping that inside
Yeah.
it would have drove me nuts, because that's the one thing that, if anything you take away from this conversation, is that I'm sure you have one person, and if you
Mm.
don't find that one person, reach out to somebody if you're
Yeah.
going through the same thing I went through, which is like you need a couple people. You might need a secular brother who's not going to talk to you about what the scripture says, but is just going to give you some life and spirit. And you might need that. You might, and then you're definitely going to need some biblical friends if you got any. And you
Yeah.
might not even that, and you might not be someone who believes in the scripture, but man, go to that person, because they're going to pray for you, and
Mhm.
you might start seeing God in places that you never thought before. Luckily, I'm a
Absolutely.
believer. I had guys like Nate. I had guys like and I got to give a huge shout out to Will from Truth is Stranger Than Fiction. Man,
Mhm.
he came
Mhm.
through so many times. We had some great conversations. He really helped me out, because he dealt with some stuff that was
Mm.
similar, and I he was somebody I reached out besides you, Nate.
Yeah. Well,
I
I'm
had
glad
a
to hear
few,
that you
yeah,
had many people to reach out to
I had a
because
handful of guys, and as I got more comfortable, as I started not
Mhm.
holding in so much grief, I would let maybe one or two people in.
Mhm.
And it was fine. I didn't have to reach out and tell everybody at once. It was just like,
Sure.
let me get through this. Let me deal with these obstacles. And then, like, if I feel like this person notices something, here's why, my man. Like,
Mm.
this is why, what I'm going through. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I've been like way out there, and it was tough, but
And I know you had a lot of different emotions at this time, and I think probably having those brothers to talk to kind of help you refocus because you fought off some real serious emotions. I know that I
yeah.
hope it's okay to share. You had
No,
called me
yeah,
one
yeah.
time and you were like, I'm ready to go knock this guy out. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know his Facebook profile. I know
I
where
found out everything, man. I found
and
everything I wanted.
I
I
know that you were pretty close at one point to really doing the gut reaction, which
Mhm.
most people would be, at least it would have crossed their mind. And I remember talking, we talked through that, and you were honest about how you were feeling, but you were like, look, I know that if I do something like that, it's going to make it worse,
Yeah,
not better.
yeah.
So you certainly had your fair share of different emotions. Sometimes just deep sadness, other times anger,
Mm,
disbelief, frustration. But I'm glad that you're sharing about how did what things did you do to get through those dark moments. You
yeah,
prayed, you talked to people who you knew you could trust that would give you sound, wise advice and biblical advice as well. And I think that was probably a huge key, in working through that time. um,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I mean, what else do you think was maybe helpful to you in that situation?
I started with everything going on, being stuck in
Mhm.
the same house,
Yeah.
going through this whole divorce aspect, I was just, in the beginning, I was ashamed, the
Mhm.
whole, oh my God, I'm getting divorced. I'm a believer. How is this gonna reflect on me? Like, the enemy starts really playing with your mind because he knows you're very weak at the moment, and he's convincing you that you're wrong and this and that. And
Yeah.
there were some times when I would talk to you and we would be talking and you were like, man, you're doing everything you're supposed to. And I don't see why you're going to be punished for, going in this direction, because the Bible says, like, if there's one reason to get divorced is for,
Yeah.
this,
Infidelity.
this
Yeah.
very thing.
Yeah.
Like, and yet there was a point in my time, even when I was going through this, I kind of still reached out to her like, hey, I
Yeah.
kind of want to try to figure this out. And I never thought I would be that. Like, I thought once that happened, no, you
Yeah.
get out. But there was a point where I was like, and she just laughed in my face. I don't want
Yeah.
nothing to do with you. And it was like, man, who is this person?
Yeah, I
Um,
remember when you called me. I mean, I want to vouch for Carlos on that point because I do remember, even with the hurt feelings that you had and the anger and all these range of emotions, I know that on more than one occasion you shared with me, like, look, Nate, if we can turn this around, like, I would rather stay with her. I would rather we work through our differences. And I know for a period of time, and you said before, look, I wasn't perfect in any of this, but I do know that you were really trying for a period of time to be more patient, to try to be, tender with your words, and to try to show, consistent, appropriate affection, and
yeah,
at the same time, you were trying to give her some space, but you were definitely sharing with her, letting her know what your intentions were, and that was, hey, I think we're worth, staying together. And so I know that that was a difficult thing for you to do, and I've talked with other brothers who found themselves in a similar situation, and they did everything that they could do,
yeah,
um, but ultimately, I believe it's that person's choice, and some people, if they have a spouse who is unfaithful, but then that spouse, turns it around, repents, sometimes they're able to say, you know what, okay, I'm going to forgive and I want to stay in our marriage. Other times it's too painful, but unfortunately, in this situation, you were trying to very hard to do what
yeah.
you could do to try to salvage your marriage of several years, and unfortunately, she just wasn't willing to do that. She didn't want to change, her
Yeah.
new way that she had kind of got stuck in. So
It
yeah, I
was a
just wanted
relief
to
for her. Yeah. It was
yeah, so I
definitely a
just
relief
wanted to
for her.
throw that out there to say that I think that we should try in those circumstances, and I know that you did. And unfortunately, it just it ended in divorce.
Yeah.
Um,
And the reason why looking back, going through all those stages, going through, like, honestly, let's try to see if we can work
mm,
this out, and being rejected and crying on a regular basis and just allowing yourself to really, like, deal with this traumatic experience you're going through. By the time I was signing those papers,
yeah,
listen, I had no like, I knew I did it right.
mm,
I knew the Lord was not unhappy with me. I knew the Lord was pleased with the way I did it, because by the time we got divorced, I was a completely different person than she knew. I
mm,
was literally 70 pounds lighter.
mm,
Um, I had my sexiness back, like confidence, like people were drawn to me all of a sudden. I had this newfound, um, like, sense of life, and I just felt great. Like, I realized, like, you did everything you could,
sure,
and at the end of the day, this is what happened. And you either can just die,
yeah,
just crawl in the ball and be miserable, or you can learn a new way to live. And God really used guys like you and my friend and Will, like, really help me get through these tough times where
mhm,
it built me back up. Like, I was tore down to the point where I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
sure,
But by the time I was signing those papers, I felt I felt great. And,
hmm
like, this sounds crazy, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. I can't I it sounds crazy, but it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Um
Yeah, I know
yeah,
that
it's crazy to say it, but it
you
is.
felt like you were freed from, a prison of,
Yeah.
self-doubt and lack of confidence in yourself, and feeling guilty over things that you couldn't really change, right? and
Mhm.
and I'm sure the pressure of trying to make changes and not having success with that, that can really weigh on you, daily.
Yeah.
And so I know that obviously it wasn't your desire for that to happen, but
Nope.
it had to work out the way it did, for obvious reasons. And I remember telling you that when I spoke with you last, and we were talking about, doing this live stream and sharing, and you said, I feel like I should share. I feel like I'm ready to share because maybe there's people out there. There's got to be people out there that have either experienced something like this and maybe are still in that healing process, or maybe down the road something like this could happen to them,
Mhm.
and maybe a testimony like this could pop into their mind to say, hey, you know what, I need to reach out, like Carlos was saying, I need to reach out to some people who I can trust, who can build me up.
Definitely.
And that's why we titled this. And I love when you sent the thumbnail, the title on the thumbnail said it's not over. And I think that a lot of people feel, and let's be honest, even in the quote unquote church, there's a huge stigma, even now, at times, for people who have been divorced, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
almost like it's some kind of an unforgivable, sin,
Yeah.
or some scarlet letter. But so I am thankful, that you were able to push through all of those feelings that you had. That, like you said, hey, I wasn't perfect, but obviously there were some huge mistakes you could have made that you didn't.
Mhm.
And I think that having wise counsel, was a big part of that. But also, it shows your heart that ultimately you wanted to honor the Father, um, even though there was lots of things you could have done, and temptation and
Yeah.
different things.
The
I know.
temptations were there too, like
Yeah,
I said, like the temptations were there, like going through all this started like, okay, well then I'm gonna start looking. And it was like, wait, what? Where did this
yeah,
come from? Like, nah, you know what? Let's
yeah,
just get to the point where you're not in this situation, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And once I did, like I felt free and I felt like, yeah, maybe
yeah,
if I want to, I can do it and I don't have to feel guilty about it. And
yeah. I
not
remember
that
that
you
you
were
told
ready,
me.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember you told me, you said, Nate, I'm still married, and I need to be faithful even
Hmm.
though she's not, and I remember thinking, wow, that is a difficult but mature way to think about it. And I think I think it would have been easy to go that other route, like you said, and it
Hmm.
probably would have been very satisfactory in many ways. But I'm
Oh,
sure that
definitely.
as you look back, you probably feel better about the fact that
Yeah.
how you handled things.
I definitely could hold my head up high knowing that like, what was the rush? What
Yeah,
was this is what's gonna happen? Fine. Let's just get through the process. Let's just deal with it. And once I dealt with it,
yeah,
and that, yeah, was the pain over? Not necessarily.
sure,
Um, Especially the night I signed the papers.
yeah,
That was another time I cried again,
mhm,
because it was like, wow, something that was almost 20 years. Just
yeah.
that's it. Just
And
like
you
that's it.
realize that it
This
came
pay,
to a final point, you know.
yeah,
And I'm
and
sure, and you understand this, and others do as well, that, you know, obviously it will still affect you in many ways the rest of your life. And you have two children,
hmm,
that were together from your marriage. So there's always going to be some, some contact, some communication, at least in some ways, that may have to take place. But it sounds to me like, you are trying to move forward in a positive, direction. You're trying to stay busy with good things, occupy yourself with wholesome things and good things. And I think, probably your children are benefited by that as well, because they're
yeah,
seeing, how their dad is trying to handle things. And
yeah,
that's going to pay
definitely.
rich dividends, I think, down the road for your children. um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's not an easy thing to share at times, but I know that you said, hey, I feel like I'm ready. I feel like I need to share this. And the timing was good because I was kind of dormant as far as like doing live shows and having guests on for about a year with my new job and family stuff. And I was just starting to get some people that were nudging me, to kind of get back in the mix. And then you called me, and I remember when you first, shared the idea, I was like, well, yeah, I think that would be really good, but I'm so rusty, and I haven't, I don't even know if my equipment works for that. And so I had some opportunities the last few weeks, going on some different channels to kind of shake the rust off
You're doing a
and
good job, man.
test some stuff out so we could make this happen. So I'm definitely thankful, for people like yourself who are willing to share, such personal things that with the benefit of trying to help others. And Yeah, so I don't want to cut you off. If you have other things that you think are important to share, we'll definitely go there. If not, then we might just see if there's anybody in that chat that has a few questions for you, or about the situation. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely think. I mean, I think we wrapped it up pretty good. And don't when I say it was the best thing, I'm not saying with puffed up proud, like
Sure.
yeah, but it was like God knew how much I was in a bad situation for
Yeah.
years, and He knew this was the only way I was actually going to like rip the band-aid off.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I was gonna long suffer in this relationship for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I wasn't going nowhere, and this was the only way I was gonna be free of
Yeah.
that situation. So unfortunately, that happened, but peace came with
Yeah.
it.
Well, he
Um,
allowed you to
yeah.
eventually move out of that dynamic and to be
Hmm.
able to get some healthy stuff back in your life. And I mean, with my situation with being fired a few years ago and things drastically changing, it's different than what you're describing, but on the same level, I can kind of experience how, when we go through suffering and trials and challenges, it does eventually increase our faith if we hang in there. And
Yeah.
for me, I can remember thinking that, you know, the he will allow us sometimes to struggle in different
Hmm.
things, and sometimes it feels like just when we can't take it anymore, that his grace somehow changes the situation, helps us,
Yeah.
put someone in our path who can give us some respite, encourage our spirit. And so I can kind of catch a glimpse, for how that transition felt for you. um, and a year ago things drastically changed with me, and I was able to kind of get out of some real difficult challenges financially, and
Hmm.
be able to help support my family again in some real stable ways. And for me, I know that was a big weight lifted off my shoulders. And if you talk with my wife, she would say the same thing, because for about 2 years she was really the only steady income, and so she had pressure on her as well. And for a period of time we kind of felt like, man, when is this ever going to end? Is the father going to help, make things better at some point? But I really believe that when we are faithful, and sometimes he blesses us with his grace even when we're not faithful. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what grace is about. But I really think he looks down on his servants when they're trying to be faithful in an absolutely stressful situation, and we're not behaving as the world would behave. We're
Right.
trying to honor him. We're trying to not make mistakes. We're trying not to hurt others in the process. And I feel like, many times he will bless us. And it seems like you've been blessed in that way.
Yeah.
So I am thankful, because when I spoke with you last, I was like, Carlos, yeah, you sound like a new man. You sound kind of like the old Carlos, when we first met, only different in some ways, but you have that enthusiasm and energy, and you have a good outlook, for the future. Um, and I think is important, and I see in the chat here, our sister Kat, she was talking about strong men sharing their feelings honestly. It is tough, and guys have a hard time with that. So
Yeah.
I would hope to think that people look at Carlos and myself and say, okay, those guys are manly men, manly enough, and if they can do it, so can I.
Yeah, yeah. Don't
So
hold it in. That's for sure. Like,
absolutely.
I'm not gonna be the first or the last person to go through this. And this is not just for obviously
Yeah.
for men. The thing is, men definitely suffer in silence.
Yeah,
So yeah, I pointed more towards them, but there are women out there who are struggling and are
certainly.
in an
Yeah,
abusive relationship and are in just a terrible situation. Understand, like
yeah,
there
absolutely.
is a way out. There is a way. Um, there's light beyond what you're experiencing. You don't
Yeah,
have to stay in a situation, but do everything you can at the moment to try to make it work. But if it
yeah,
just doesn't work, you're not a failure. You're not, it's not a it's, you know what I mean? Like, you can hold your head up high and know that
sure.
at the end of the day, you did what you could, and God's going to honor that. And
Yeah,
he's been honoring me in many ways. And I feel blessed in so many ways.
yeah,
And I haven't been perfect. I haven't walked this walk perfectly, but I know that at the
sure.
end of the day, my heart still yearns for a connection strong with him. And
Amen. Yeah,
it's just one of
absolutely.
those things that, like, don't beat yourself up. Like, don't
Sure.
allow the enemy to take you down to a point where you might never recover from.
Yeah,
There's
Satan
going
will
to be a
do
better
that.
day.
He will use, there's a healthy guilt that might lead us, to repentance if we're in the wrong, of course. But then there's that unnecessary guilt that he will use to attack us. And so I hope that this discussion tonight. I hope people will share this as much as they can. Honestly, I don't care about views for my channel. I just care about the Father using people in this chat and who are subscribed to this channel to send this message out to maybe somebody who they think will need it. And so, if anybody has any real quick questions or anything that they want to ask Carlos, you could put those in all caps in the chat. We'll wait just a minute to see if there's anything that pops up that Carlos wants to address,
Sure.
and then if not, we'll end with the prayer together because I know there are others who are struggling right now in their relationships, and we want to ask the Father to bless them as well. So, anybody have a question real quick before we wrap up? You can just put it in the chat in all caps. And Carlos, I don't know if you can see. Can you see the chat
Yeah, I'm seeing it from. I have the other chat open too,
from
but I'm
YouTube?
seeing it
Okay,
from. So yeah, I can
okay,
definitely answer whatever questions you guys might have if you're
sure.
experiencing anything, and I can help out in any way. I'll definitely be more than willing to.
Sure. Okay, we'll wait just a minute and see. And if there aren't any questions, then we'll go ahead and have a prayer together. But Carlos, while we're waiting to see if any questions pop up, um, what's a way that someone could get a hold of you if they wanted to message you, maybe like an email or something, that if they really needed to reach out to you?
All right, so this is the hard thing because yeah, I did have a channel. I did all that. I haven't uploaded in a long time. I haven't even
Mhm.
paid. Like, maybe I'll re-upload this one on my
Yeah,
channel, but
yeah, please do.
yeah, it was like you said, it's not about the views for me. It wasn't about
Yeah.
like trying to get my channel started back up, because like I almost feel like what I've done in the community was enough. Like, I
Hmm.
felt like my voice was heard. I didn't, I wasn't like this grand like or nothing. It was cool. I got to meet a lot of great people. I
Yeah.
expressed myself in the way I felt the Father was leading me to. But at the end of the day, like, I'm gonna do my best to answer somebody. You
Sure.
can hit me up on either Facebook, um, but I don't. If you really know me, you'll know that I don't even use Facebook that much. I have a couple of Instagrams, but I'm mainly on my like
Yeah.
barber one. Really, the
You,
best way
yeah.
I would say would be like, if it's something dire need, like, you can hit up Nate, and if
Yeah.
and
Reach
Nate
out
can
to
vet
me
you
and
out. Yeah,
I can try
and
to
he can
help,
reach me.
or
Yeah,
I know how to get a hold of Carlos, so
yeah, he can get a
you
hold
know
of me real easy, and
I
we'll
can
go from
forward a
there.
message to him. But yeah, well, it doesn't look like we have questions, but I see Kevin give you a shout out there in all caps. He says, "Miss you,
My
Carlos."
whole
And
yes,
yeah, I mean,
Kevin.
I have to
Oh,
say, when I posted on Facebook, a lot of people were excited because they know you, and although you haven't been around in the truth YouTube lately, a lot of folks were like, "Yeah, Carlos." And so I'm sure
yes.
that you'll probably have people reaching out to you now if they see this video. But yeah, so I will do what I can to help anybody
Yeah,
with the
yeah, yeah.
need, and then
And again, like, if it's someone needs to talk and I have the availability, I'll do my best to make time.
sure,
Because I know
okay,
sometimes people just need someone to listen to them, and
Exactly. And
and
even though, even though people might be comfortable with me, if their situation is something that I haven't experienced and it's something that you shared that's similar,
yeah,
they might be more comfortable talking directly to you. So I'll
of
go ahead
course.
and pass on any information that I can. And then what I'd like to do is just kind of close this out with a prayer. And then Carlos and I wanted to try to keep this about an hour. We didn't want to do the 5 hour marathon because I know the views will definitely drop off. We wanted people to get engaged with the topic and stick in with us. Anybody can watch something for an hour. We watch stupid shows on whatever, Netflix,
All the
Prime,
time,
for an
yeah.
hour and a half, 2 hours. So hopefully for those who have shared this, they won't need to go an hour long before they get into the subject and see something maybe that could be relevant to them. And once they do that, I think they'll probably be hooked and want to watch the rest of the video, to see the big picture of what's being shared. So yeah, let's go ahead and have a prayer together before we finish off tonight. And I appreciate all those in the chat, the mods as well, and friends that have popped in, the messages that have been sent. But let's go ahead and go to the Father in prayer. Father, we do give you thanks for this day and every day of life that you've blessed us with. We thank you especially for salvation through the sacrifice of our Messiah. We give you thanks for your grace, especially in those times when we don't deserve it, especially those times where we truly need it. We thank you that you have seen us through many different difficult challenges in our lives. And, Carlos and myself and others in the chat here, we are praying that those who need to hear this message will hear it, and that those who are willing to reach out will have somebody, if it's not us, maybe somebody else that they can trust, someone who can give them sound wisdom and advice and just walk through the difficult times with them, especially in regards to these types of important relationships that often bring a struggle. And so I'm thankful for Carlos and for his faith and for his example and just his honesty about everything that happened, and pluses and minuses and victories and shortcomings, and just appreciate his spirit to share honestly. And we pray that this will be a blessing to those who hear it. We pray that you continue to bless he and his children, and just bless those who will watch this. Help them to refocus on you and to refocus on the things that are most important in this life. Uh, and we thank you for all of our many blessings. We thank you for your grace, for salvation. And we pray all of this in the name of Yahushua, Messiah. Amen.
Amen. Amen to that. Definitely. Shout out to Kevin and everybody who
Yeah,
showed up and listened. I appreciate everybody coming out. And a big shout out to you, Nate, for even putting this together. I mean, I could have easily have done this on my channel, but I felt
sure.
like you were so close to the situation that I think this format fit best for what I wanted to share. So I'm just glad that we
Sure.
got this opportunity.
No, I appreciate it. And hang in there for a moment. I'm going to end the broadcast here in just a moment for those who are watching. And, you can reach out to me if you have questions or, concerns or want to get a message to Carlos. You can reach me at Nate at firedfortruth.org. That's Nate at fired, FOR, truth.org. Or you can hit me up on Facebook. I do use Messenger. I kind of screen my Messenger. I can't take all the messages from everybody in the world, but if you just say, hey, wanted to talk with you about what Carlos shared, that'll give me a clue in. So thank you guys so much in the chat. And for those who will watch this after it's live, I hope this has been a blessing to you. And stay tuned. I'll try to share some other opportunities here in the near future, maybe some other testimonies. I know I promised to share from that old history book that my wife got for me. I still plan on doing something on that, so I haven't forgot. But please be patient with me. But thanks everybody in the chat. Carlos, hang in there for just a second, and you folks have a good evening and be blessed.